Hey everyone, and welcome to another GMG review. This is part 1 of 2 of my review of the new General's Handbook 2019, GW's yearly update to Warhammer Age of Sigmar. And this is a review divided into 2 parts. So if you're looking for all the new point values from the Pitch Battle Profile update, this book was divided in 2, I think really wisely. And that review will be up here in the cards, where you can check out all the new point values, everything that's changed as far as the match play stuff for Age of Sigmar. What this is going to concentrate on is going to be the General's Handbook itself. Not too much about the new formats of meeting engagement, because I'm doing a whole separate video on that, which is a battle report. Again, you can go up with the cards here and watch it today, between myself and Owen from Game with the Cooler. That is the thing I am most excited about in this book. What we'll focus on today is giving basically just a flip-through overview of what's in here, and probably a more in-depth look at the new battle plans and the pitch battle match play rules. Because there's some new stuff in there that's interesting, including official GW tournament rules for all their tournaments. And I'm pretty excited about this because it gives lots of instructions. There's even a scoring sheet for the rounds. There's like a schedule. This could be something really cool for the future for Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and I think something that's going to be really helpful for the community to help them organize. So what's in the book? And I'm going to abuse this thing. Watch this. Oh, everyone hates it when I do that, but literally you wouldn't be able to see it if I didn't. That great new Forbidden Power thing, where you got your Archeon and your Sigmar-y, I guess is that Sigmar, or is that the Arch Prime Celest? I don't know. I think it's the Lord Celestin Prime. We get the player's code. This is a really interesting page, and we'll talk about it in a second, but then we've got open play, narrative play, match play rules, and then Conquest Unbound, which is some new stuff and allegiance abilities for Darkling Covens, Dispossessed, Free Peoples, Seraphon, and then allegiance abilities for the Wanderers, Slaves to Darkness, and Iron Jaws, and then some special stuff for the Seraphon and Iron Jaws, where you get some new kind of like sub-factions, like the Fangs of Sotek and the Dracothian's Tail, and the Iron Suns and the Bloodtooths for those two. Now, some people have been saying they're a bit discouraged by the idea that there's these updates for the factions in there, because it means the book might be a long time in coming. I would guess those people would be right. If they're giving you a little bit extra in this book, so if you're Seraphon or Iron Jaws, I suspect it's because you're not getting your book for a while. Maybe not in the next year's cycle, but we'll see. We'll see how you do. So let's talk about the player's code. This is a really neat thing. So if you ever spent any time working for GW, you'll probably, or even been in a GW store, probably from the 90s through until the mid-2000s, you probably remember that there was always some kind of like some guidance on how to treat people for people working there, and also some guidance for people playing games in the shops. And the player's code here kind of echoes that philosophy of like being good to each other, being helpful, and trying to build like a positive community. So I'm going to go through the points. It does a good job here. I'm not going to spoil this part. This is a good read of kind of overviewing the intention behind this code, and the two sections of it I think are kind of explained very well as like philosophically. But there's cardinal rules and principles. So the cardinal rules are things you follow all the time. Just no matter what, these are your moral imperatives, I guess, in the wargaming hobby, as they describe it. And then your principles are things you aspire to. So the principles are the things that you try to do as best you can in the hobby to make it a positive and productive environment for everybody. So I really like these a lot. This is the first time in a wargaming book in a long time that I've seen something like this put way up in lights. And well, let's talk about it. So the cardinal rules, the kind of moral imperatives here, are always be polite and respectful, and always tell the truth and never cheat. And I mean, I don't think that just applies to wargaming. Now, there's times where you know these are things that don't happen, but I don't think that there's really any argument that those two things are conducive to a positive and productive like community. If you're honest and you don't cheat, you don't try and gain an advantage through unscrupulous means, and you're polite and respectful, you have good conversations, good communication with people, I think most communities get better. And if you're trying to pull fast ones, have gotcha moments, and are generally just not respectful to the people around you, you're gonna have a bad time and so other people. So I fully agree that those are cardinal rules for, I mean, not really just wargaming. Those are just good principles to have in life. If you're just an average Joe or an average Joanne, or you want to just kind of like be a productive or even just I guess a good participating member of your community, those are things that that have an impact, that you don't feel like they have an impact because they're kind of passive, but they do if you just do them consistently. And then principles, things to aspire to. Arrive on time with all the things you need to play the game. Offer to shake your opponent's hand before and after the game. Avoid using language your opponent might find offensive. Ask your opponent's permission if you wish to use unpainted models or proxy models. That's a good one, you know, because, again, it can lead to unintended consequences of gotcha moments or people being confused. Just a good communication thing. Offer your opponent a chance to examine your army roster before the battle starts, not hiding anything. Answer any questions your opponent has about the army and the rules that apply to your army. Don't try and cover up what you're trying to do. Measure moves and distances carefully and accurately. Give your opponent the chance to examine your dice rolls before picking them up. Again, not scooping dice when you're rolling. I would add pick up your misses, not your hits as well. That should just be a rule in wargaming. I'm going to write that one in Sharpie. Pick up your misses, don't pick up your hits. Where was I? Ask permission before touching any of your opponent's miniatures. Remind your opponent about rules they may have forgotten or use, or which they have used incorrectly, especially when doing so is to your opponent's advantage rather than your own. That's a good one. Telling people, hey, you might have forgotten, you reroll ones because you're inside an aura or whatever. Some people make the argument that that's like giving away an advantage. That's like that you're a better player than the other person, and that you shouldn't remind them of those things because that's their mistake. But I would argue that it's going to cut both ways. If you're both being honest, if everyone's following these two cardinal rules at the beginning and you're being honest, you're going to have the things that you forget reminded back to you too. Like it's going to pay dividends, because as much as people might think they're perfect, they're going to forget or miss something as well, and your opponent will probably reciprocate. And then you know that the game has been played as cleanly as possible too. It's been played as it's supposed to be played, because to gain an advantage through a forgotten rule actually doesn't make you the better player. It just means that you played an imperfect version of the game and won. I'd rather play the game to completion, getting as much as we can possibly right, accepting the fact that we probably won't. But I feel better about the results knowing that we at least did it correctly. I can own the results, right? Never deliberately waste time during a game. Avoid distracting an opponent when they are trying to concentrate, and be careful to respect their personal space. Never complain about your bad luck or your opponent's good luck. And then never collude with an opponent to fix the outcome of a game. That one's interesting, because I have, in other wargaming hobbies, actually seen that happen, where people have colluded to fix the results in an event. So two people who know each other play midway through a round, one person has a chance at the finals, the other doesn't, so they collude to get the next they collude to maximize the score of one person to get them into a next bracket. Or because there was a prize in the line and they were going to split it. That's actually been a problem. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's cool that that's in there. It's not something that I think I've seen in a publication by GW for a long time, or even just by a gaming company in a long time, and it all makes sense to me. I mean, the principles are all good principles as far as the wargaming hobby goes, but the cardinal rules are just good life rules. So open play games, we won't spend too much time here, but there's a neat new open war army generator. It actually allows you to create an army on the fly. It reminds me a little bit of the Rogue Trader rulebook, where you'd randomly roll up your army. And everything's classified in a certain lump. So like a horde is a unit of 20 models, each with a wound characteristic of 1 and a save characteristic of 6 or dash. So some of these things won't even apply to your army. Like a Stormcast army doesn't have any hordes in it. Regulars, a unit up to 10 models, each with a characteristic save of 1, wounds of characteristic of 1 and a save of 3, 4, or 5. And then an elite, which is like a whole Stormcast army, would be a unit of up to 5 models, each with a wound characteristic of 2 or 3. Guards, higher than elites, a unit of 3 models, each of which has a wound characteristic of 4 or 5, so like Cav. Line breakers, a unit of 1 model with a wound characteristic of 6 to 9. It's not a hero, so I guess like a Korgorath would sit in there. Gargantuans, a unit of 1 model that has a wound characteristic of 10 or more. That's not a hero, so things like your Leviathan. And then champions, a hero that's not a monster, and a conqueror, any hero. And what you do is you deal out your army using these cards. And so if you're wondering what it is that big deck of cards that the special edition this comes with, it's this kind of stuff. It's the open war cards for like randomly dealing out an army, which I think is neat, because they and then you have force points. So each player has a number of force points. You can see there's a cost on each one that you play. So let's say you're going to play a 20 force point game or something like that. What's the suggested size? Say small is 15, medium is 20, and large is 30. You would deal out a number of cards and then use your pool to buy from the cards that you had. So you get like a randomly generated army. So the armies are going to be roughly the same size point-wise, like number of wounds in the table, but they're going to be kind of random composition. So it's almost like having a 2,000 point army written for you, or doing like a blind draft. I think it's a really cool idea, and actually I could see it being something cool to do an event for, where you get told bring X or Y number of like units from your army, and then you every round you get dealt out what you get to pick from and you play. So also doing like a sealed like draft tournament, I think it'd be neat. It certainly would be a fun challenge. I don't know how balanced it would be, but it seems like it would be a fun challenge. New rules for open world terrain. This is actually something that's again kind of neat, pre-generated terrain, where every terrain piece is assigned a number, and then you want a table to have it set up. So if you just want that random element in your games, and then same with the deployment style, this is a really neat way of doing it. It kind of reminds me of the open war deck, except for the army generation one, the deck. But I really like that open war deck. I hope they bring that back in 2nd edition. It was really cool. Special objectives, ruses, and sudden death. So this is again just like the open war deck. Hidden agendas. Now these are actually used in match play and also in the pitched battle tournament system. So they're in the open war section, but match play players should probably keep an eye on these, because what they constitute is secret and submissions that they earn you just an additional nudge of points every round in a tournament. You pick 6 of them for a tournament format, and then every game you pick one of the ones that you're going to try for that game. So you don't get to try for all 6 all the time. It's when you see your opponent, you go, I've got these 6, and you pick one out to be the one that you think you can accomplish that game. And in a major victory in the tournament system is 60 points. This is another 10 points. So, and then the rest is 30 points is soft scores like painting and how you acted and stuff. It goes, I think, it's 60 for battle points, 10 for your hidden agenda, and then 25 for painting and modeling, and 5 points for like your how you acted, basically. Were you a good opponent? And they're all neat. Like there's things like invade, complete this agenda if your friendly unit with 3 or more models is wholly within your opponent's territory at the end of the battle. So you have someone that just runs and hides. Slay, you complete this agenda if the hero with the highest point value in your opponent's starting army has been slain at the end of the battle. If 2 or more heroes are eligible, slay any of them. So just little things like that. And you're basically just picking like a feat to perform. And again, these are some of the cards that come. You don't need them. There's actually a spot on your pitch battle profile sheet, which you'll see. Actually, I'll just show it to you. It's on the back of the match play thing to put your hidden agendas. So there's a place, and then you cross them off, which one you did and what number you did on your results sheet. So you don't need the cards. They're just handy to remind you what they are. You don't want to cart the book around. You just put 6 in your pocket and play the game. But yeah, no, match play players don't skip this part of the narrative and open play section, because it's super relevant to tournaments in the official GW format. And we're in a narrative play. This is cool. It's like City Fire rules for AoS, Streets of Death. I think that's cool. It's a neat little add-on. You have your arcane objectives, so like objectives that are basically infused with magic from one of the different realms. Regiments of Renown. So now again, match play players, listen up. We've seen some of these before. This is actually for doing, this is a campaign rule. This is for doing specialist campaigns. So rolling up additional powers for units. I thought we were on the mercenaries already. Elixir of the Shattered City, so some cool extra rules for an actual like place in the Mortal Realms, and then using battle plans in there, playing a mini campaign with the Elixir, and then some specific battle plans for it. So this is like giving you a pre-made setting for using the Streets of Death and Regiments of Renown, and some battle plans to play through to do it too. Raids and ambushes, doing like special asymmetrical attacker defender missions. Naming your heroes. This one's just cute. Random hero, grab a die. Random heroes for the thing. Let's do a corn hero. His name is Grek 3 Thresh of the Ripped Tongue. Stormcast Journals. His name is Hadra and Fire and Soul. Hadra Fire Soul. So it's just a cool generator for making names. This is ripped right out of the Kill Team rulebook, where you get your random names and traits for your dudes. Nurgle. His name is Nassau Spall the Blight Spreader. I like mine better. Jace of the Voorhees. And there's one for basically every primary kind of like power in here and different things. The Idnith one is Nakwas, Volthunus, the Trident Bearer. It's just silly, but it's fun. All right, here we go. This is what I thought was with Regiments of Renown. It's funny because Regiments of Renown was the old Warhammer name for what these mercenary companies are, and that's why I got confused. So mercenaries, this is the exact same core mercenary rule stuff. And in fact, this whole page is exactly the same page. I think they just ripped it directly out from Forbidden Power. It's even laid out the same. But then there's just more different companies. So the Greyfeared and the Tenebrous Court from Forbidden Power are here. But now we've got a bunch of new ones. We got the Sons of the Lichmaster Mercenary Company. And it's, if you pick this mercenary company to be hired, you must include the following units in your army as mercenary units. So you have to have 1 Necromancer. And remember, only 1 in 4 units of your army can be mercs or allies. 1 Necromancer, 0 to 3 units of zombies or skeleton warriors, and 0 to 1 corpse cart with unholy lodestones. So you basically get a corpse cart, a Necromancer, and a bunch of dead dudes to push it around. And they're just like, I think it'd be super cool. It's kind of the old, what was that Legion? Was it Legion of the Damned? No, something else. There was literally like an old skeleton legion that would show up and were led by like an old warrior who is kind of his vendetta is really keeping everyone alive and bound together. The Order of the Blood-Drenched Rose Mercenary Company. So, you know, just a Vampire Lord and some Blood Knights, because that's not crazy. And you can just take a Vampire Lord and a Nightmare Steed, and he must be mounted on a Nightmare Steed, and 1 to 3 hits of Blood Knights. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention this. I'll mention the one for the mercenaries afterwards. Unreasoning Bloodlust, you do get a special power for mercenaries. Do not take battle shock tests for units from this mercenary company. So the vampires are just immune to battle shock. But the other one over here for the Necromancer, Power of the Lichmaster, add 1 to the attack characteristic of weapons used by zombies or skeleton warriors from this mercenary company while they're wholly within 18 of the Necromancer from the same company. So he just boofs them up a bit. There's the Grug Brothers, and they're 1 to 3 Ale Guzzler Gargants. Just stick a giant in your army, why not? And then they have the Sibling Rivalry. Actually, a lot of these are almost ripped right out of the old Regiments of Renown, because this is kind of like the Giants of Albion. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by a unit from this mercenary company that's within 6 inches of 1 other unit from the same mercenary company. You can instead reroll all hit rolls if they're within 2 or more. So if all 3 of them are there, they reroll all their hits, which is crazy. Then you've got Nimiard's Rough Riders, which is a bunch of free guild, and it's 0 to 1 free guild general, which must be mounted and cannot have a stately war banner. 1 to 3 units of free guild pistoliers, and 0 to 1 unit of outriders. And they have the eyes and ears rule. Instead of setting up a unit from this mercenary company on the battlefield, you can place it on one side and say it's scouting in reserve. If you do so at the end of your first movement phase, you must set that unit up wholly within 6 of the edge of the battlefield and more than 9 from the enemy. Any number of units from this mercenary company can be set up like that. So they get an outflank, basically, which is cool. And then we have the Black Smoke Battery Mercenary Company. So 0 to 1 Cogsmith, 1 to 3 cannons and or organ guns, and 0 to 1 gyrocopter or gyro bomber. And then you get the Spotter Special Rule. Add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by cannons and organ guns from this mercenary company if a gyrocopter or gyro bomber from the same mercenary company is within 12 inches of the target, so you get a spotter. That's pretty cool. Rampagers, 0 to 1 Dark Oath Chieftain or Dark Oath War Queen, and 1 to 3 units of Marauders. After you set this unit up, they can move D6 inches. They just go on the rampage. There's a bunch of freaks show up and start charging. Scroog's Menagerie, 1 Chaos Gargant, and 0 to 3 units of Chaos Spawn, Chaos Warhounds, and or Furies. In any combination. And then Lord and Master of the Chaos Gargant from this mercenary company can use the at the double forward to victory and inspiring presence command as if he was a general. However, any command abilities that they use only affect units from the same mercenary company. So he's just a giant with all his freaky friends. And then the Gut Stuffers, 1 Firebelly and 1 to 3 units of Man-Eaters, and they are hungry beyond your reason. You can reroll charge rolls for this unit from this mercenary company. However, if a unit from this mercenary company is within 12 of the enemy at the start of the charge phase, it must try to charge and must make a charge move if possible for it to do so. So you have a kind of an unstoppable unit of Man-Eaters with a Firebelly hanging out. Cool way to get a wizard. And we're into match play. All right, so let's talk about match play. So match play tournaments, there's a whole section here on tournaments, the rules pack, and what it means for playing pitch battles. Now, this is unique. Pitch battles. Let's talk a bit about terrain. Most of what's in here is exactly the same. So all the usual stats: Vanguard at 1,000 points, 1 to 4, 2 plus, 0 to 2, 0 to 2, and then any other units and less than 200 points in allies. That's pretty common. And then everything else here is basically remained the same. Now, when we get a little bit further on, there are optional 2018 battle plans. You've got a 2019 version of most of these already. But if either player is in a pitched battle game has the 2018 edition, after determining which battle plan is to be used, one player can roll a die to see if the battle plan with the same name from the General's Handbook is 2018 is used instead of 2019. If they decide to do so, on a 1 to 3 the battle plan is used, and on a 4 to 6 it's the 2019. So you can opt basically to force your opponent to play an older version of the battle plans which you want, which I find interesting, but it's an optional rule, so I doubt many people will actually play with it. So now the scenery rules and faction terrain are interesting. Sometimes the allegiance abilities for an army will allow you to include one or more terrain features. These are set up in addition to the pitch battle terrain featured. In a pitch battle, faction terrain must be set up more than 6 inches from the edge of the battlefield, more than 6 inches from any other terrain feature, and more than 3 inches from any objectives, in addition to any other restrictions that apply. Sometimes this will make it impossible for a faction terrain piece to be used, in which case it is not. So, interesting. Terrain becomes a lot more restricted. And the placement of terrain becomes very prescribed in here. A pitch battle is fought on a battlefield that measures 48 by 72, so it's always 6 feet. After deciding which battle plan is being used, the players must first set up any objective markers that are used, and then the terrain features for the battle on the battlefield. The players can then proceed to set up their armies. The location of any objectives can be found in the battle plan. After the objectives have been set up, each player must pick 5 terrain features from the list on the right, 3 from primary and 2 from secondary. So you have to put 10 pieces of terrain down before you put down your faction terrain. Now this is really interesting. I don't know how many people are going to follow this, but the official rules for this are the players deploy the terrain, then do their faction terrain, and there has to be 10 pieces. Now the primaries consist of Azurite Ruins, Citadel Woods, Mage Wrath Thrones, and Ophidian Archways, which are all relatively big. Now the Azurite Ruins don't specify if you're using more than one piece. So I don't know if it's like a little nub of stone or if it's actually like the whole set of Azurite Ruins and you're supposed to base them. The rest of them are fairly self-evident. So you have to take 3 from this list per player and then 2 from the other one. So 2 from Arcane Ruin, Dragon Fate Dais, Numinous Oculum, or Sigmarite Mausoleum, consisting of the minimum number of models. Now unique, any other terrain feature that is no more than 10 inches across at its widest point and no more than 10 inches tall at its tallest point can be used to sub in for any of these. And this is all the primary list here. Sorry, this is all 9 of these are the primaries. Now secondaries are just walls and fences, consisting of 2 models. And because that specifies 2 models, I think the Azurite Ruin is just 1 piece. Unless there's no base for it to go on. So I'm not sure. And then unique, any other terrain feature that is no more than 6 inches across at its widest point and no more than 4 inches tall at its tallest point. So I assume that would also include all of the like ancient rubble and stuff and really the Azurite Ruins. I would say the Azurite Ruins, unless it's like a complete piece, you'd actually be using this one over here. Now there is that bigger Azurite Ruin kit that comes out, that's out now, which that might be referring to, and this is actually referring to like the more like beat up ruins. But I'm not 100% sure because there's some stuff with the same names out there. So you're putting down 10 pieces of terrain, then your faction terrain, and then scenery rules. In a pitch battle, you must use the scenery table opposite to randomly generate a scenery rule for each unique terrain feature that does not have a war scroll. So these ones you have to use their war scroll terrain features, and then for the other ones you have to generate. So if you don't have a war scroll for it, you have to roll for one of these and actually apply them. And then in a pitch battle, you actually have all these additional command abilities too. So all at attack, you can use this command ability at the start of your combat phase. If you do so, pick 1 friendly unit wholly within 12 inches of a friendly hero or 18 of the general. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks by that unit until the end of the phase. You can buy reroll 1s to hit now as a command trait in pitch battles. That's crazy. All at defense, exact same thing to reroll save rolls of 1. And then volley fire, if you do so, pick a friendly unit wholly within 12 of the same range. Reroll hits to 1 for shooting. So like, you're basically able to spend a CP now to juice up anyone's shooting, anyone's combat, or anyone's saves. Wow. And it can't be dispelled. And it's got a pretty massive range, 12 inches from a hero and 18 from a general. Madness. Madness. All of the scenery table rules seem like they're fairly similar, except for the B table. You have overgrown, where basically that thing blocks line of sight just like a Citadel wood does. Entangling, subtract, and there's actually tokens in that same cardboard set for these. Subtract 2 from run and charge rolls if you're within 1 inch of the terrain. Volcanic, at the start of each hero phase, roll a die. On a 6, each unit within 1 inch takes up D3 mortal wounds. Commanding, at the start of your hero phase, if your general and no enemy general is within 1, they get an additional command point. Healing, at the start of your hero phase, roll a die for each friendly unit within 1. On a 6, they heal D3 wounds allocated to them. And then nullification. In the enemy hero phase, if any heroes from your army are within 1 of a nullification train feature, one of them can attempt to unbind a spell as if they were a wizard. In addition, if they can already do so, they can do an additional spell. In addition, an endless spell that is within 1 inch of it is automatically dispelled at the end of a moon phase. So crazy. 6 new terrain rules. You have to use them for anything that's not in there. And 3 new command traits as well. So this is just generally affecting Age of Sigmar. That's a bunch of big stuff in the pitch battle section. You've also got new triumphs. In a pitch battle, you can use the following triumph table instead of one of the core rules. In addition, do not roll on this triumph table if you won your last battle. Instead, the player that spent the fewer points when selecting their army can roll on this triumph table. So either if you won your last game, the triumphs I don't think come in very often, but usually in tournaments, it's if someone spent less points in their army, they can pick one of these to have. So inspired, once per battle, when a friendly unit's picked to shoot or fight, you can say it's inspired. Reroll hit rolls for attacks made by them until the end of the phase. Bloodthirsty, once per battle, when a friendly unit is picked to shoot or fight, it can say it's bloodthirsty, reroll wounds. Indomitable, once per battle before you make a save roll, you can say it's indomitable. If you do so, reroll save rolls. Unbowed, once per battle before you take a battle shock test for a friendly unit. If you do so, it's non-bowed, they don't take the battle shock test. And then eager, once per battle before you make a run or charge roll for a friendly unit, you can say it's eager, reroll it. And then cunning, once per battle. If you do so, you don't have to spend a command point to use a command ability this time. So that's some stuff to think about. 10 pieces of terrain, a prescribed way of like selecting your terrain to place, and a very specific like list of rules for any terrain that doesn't have special rules right now. So even if you don't have a GW terrain collection, you're gonna have to roll on this table and give every piece of terrain on the table some kind of a special rule, which is crazy. Like tons of new stuff in here. And then we're on to the new battle plan. So Knight to the Heart, Total Conquest. I'm not going to go through all of these because obviously each one is fairly specific, but they are changed. Battle for the Past, very different deployment. Duality of Death, very different deployment. It seems like deployments were things that were messed with the most here, and some of the qualifiers for scoring objectives too. Star Strike with like tons of zones. Scorched Earth, 8 objectives now. Total Commitment. Focal points, the better part of Valor, shifting objectives, places of arcane power, and then my favorite, a crazy new thing for moving around the relocation orb. It's little Shellington's gonna have quite the adventure when we play that one. And now we're on to tournaments. 10 rules for tournaments, sorry, 12, 13, 14 things you have to do before you get there. And then you get your own results form and even a pitch battle schedule. So the tournaments will use the core rules, including those pertaining to allegiance, abilities, war scroll battalions, and realms of battle, and the pitch battle rules and the rules for hidden agendas from the latest General's Handbook. So that's what I'm talking about, that being important. In addition, it will use the rules for endless spells, spells of the realms, and artifacts of the realms from malign sorcery. So you're using all of that stuff in a pitch battle tournament. In order to take part in a pitch battle tournament, you must bring along a painted army of Citadel miniatures mounted on the recommended basis. You'll also need dice to tape measure all the rules for your army and copies of your army roster. The army must be chosen to a 2,000 point value. You can bring along additional painted models to allow you to summon units to the battlefield, and so should have suitable models should certain rules or abilities require you to set up an extra unit or place a model with a different one. You must have the same army and additional models for all of the games you play in the tournament. You must pick 6 hidden agendas for your army and record them on your army roster. When you arrive at the event, you must register. You'll be given a name badge, a player number, and a copy of the player's code. Interestingly, at the beginning of this book, And you must give a copy of your army roster to the event organizers. Terrain for the battle will be provided and set up by the organizers. All terrain features will be scenery models from the Games Workshop range and will use the rules from their scenery war scroll. They can be downloaded from the website. You must pick a different hidden agenda from the 6 on your roster each round. If you complete it, you will receive a bonus for your points for the game, but you will not receive any extra triumphs or count a tie or a draw as a minor victory. So you don't get the normal game benefits for hidden objectives. You just get the bonus points to your score. You cannot pick the same hidden agenda more than once during a tournament. You must pick a different one each round. You'll play 3 pitched battle games in a short format tournament and 5 in a long. The time for each game will be 2.5 hours. So that's not that long. 15 minutes before you start each round, the organizers will tell you the pitch battle plan you'll be using and in which realm the battle is taking place. So the realms change each time. And which realm escape feature from the realm of battle rules for the realm will be used each battle round. So that's interesting. So in official tournaments, the realm's going to change, which means every wizard's going to know different spells. So you get 6 spells per wizard all of a sudden. Everyone knows when you change realms, because that's the big feature of changing realmscape. Yeah, bananas. And then in the first round, you will play against a randomly selected opponent and then be paired, which means paired against people of equal points. After each round, you will fill in a form, putting in your results. You must also record the kill points for your opponent scored in the results sheet. Your opponent's kill points are equal to the point value of units from your army that were destroyed during the battle, excluding any new units that were added to your army after the battle started. So you don't get kill points for new units, just the units that they killed from your original army, and those units become, I think, probably the tiebreak in here. And then after each round, you will receive bonus points for how well you did in the battle. To this will be added your painting score for that round, and your etiquette score, and if you completed your hidden agenda. The maximum points per round is 100 points. Note that any additional models you bring are included when the painting scores for your army is evaluated. So if you bring a whole bunch of summoning models and you don't have them painted, they get included in your painting score. The winner of the tournament will be decided by adding together the points of each player from each round. In the case of a tie, the total painting scores of the tied players will be calculated. First is a tiebreaker, the total etiquette scores second, and then the kill points third. So first, second, third tiebreak to see who's the overall winner of the event. And then, yeah, you get your formats for short and long form schedules. Neat. So even a results form on here with permission to photocopy. And that is the official pitch battle tournament. And this we're under meeting engagements now for Age of Sigmar now for 2019 and on, I guess. Now there's a proviso, you don't have to use these rules if you're running an outside tournament, but as gamers tend to chase whatever the like official format is, I will not be surprised to see this get adopted really quickly by the community and turn into the status quo, especially if they're going to start running tournaments outside of Nottingham in like a big official capacity again, with the first one right now happening in Dallas, Texas for 40K coming up soon. I imagine there's going to be an Age of Sigmar one coming up not long after that, which is super exciting. I'm jazzed to see where that goes. Meeting engagements, we're going to talk about this in a separate video, so go up in the cards and go check out the battle report if you want to see me and Owen play through them. They deserve their own whole thing. And then we're going to Conquest Unbound, new stuff for various allegiances. So starting with the Darkling Covens, they get new battle traits like Lethal Coordination, the Dreadspear's Formidable Bastion ability, and the Bleakscore's Quicksilver Strike ability, and the Dark Shard's Storm of Iron Tipped Bolts ability are based upon the number of models in the unit. When working out the number of models in that unit with one of these abilities, add the number of friendly Dreadspears, Bleakswords, and Dark Shards from other units that are within 6. So those scaling abilities based on something like 10, 20, 30 models in the unit, they get to add friendly units nearby, even of different types, which is crazy. Yeah, madness. So example, 10 Dark Shards are within 6 of 10 friendly Dreadspears. They count as having 20 models for their Iron Tipped Bolts ability. Tyrannical Ruler, if a friendly Darkling Coven unit has to take a Battle Shock test when they're within 3 inches of the general, you can choose to inflict a mortal wound on them and not take the Battle Shock. He just killed somebody? He's a commissar, I love it. In addition, if your general is a Darkling Coven model, you can use the following abilities. Command Underlings, it's within 12 inches of the general, and one friendly unit can run and still shoot and or charge in the same turn. And the second one is Inspire Hatred. You can use this command ability at the start of your combat phase. If you do so, pick one friendly Darkling Coven, reroll wound rolls of 1 for attacks made by that unit in that combat phase. Now remember, this combines with the new pitch battle ones where you can reroll shooting and melee attacks of 1s as well for a CP. And now you've got a full list of 6 command traits and 6 artifacts. So the command traits, Merciless. D3 additional models flee if they're within 12 inches of the general when a battle shock is taken from the baddies. Arrogant Prowess, you can reroll hit rolls of 1 for the attacks made by the general. Sustain Misery. At the end of the combat phase, if at least one enemy model was slain within 12, you can heal D3 wounds that have been allocated to the general. He just feeds on their sorrow. He's like Cartman with Scott Tenorman. Master of the Sorcerous Arts. If this general is a wizard, add 1 to the casting and unbinding and dispelling rolls for them. If it's not a wizard, they gain the wizard keyword and can cast, unbind, and dispel spells in the same manner as a sorceress. And then Effortless Grace, add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target the general. And Impossibly Swift, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target the general. All super useful. Those are pretty meat and potatoes, but like -1 to hit, +1 to cast, all really good. Artifacts of Power. The Shadow Shroud Ring, once per battle if you're in your hero phase, the bearer can use the artifact. If they do so, visibility to and from the bearer is limited to a maximum of 3 inches until your next hero phase. So basically you can only do melee attacks against them, or shoot them if they're already in melee. In addition, if they do so, they can fly until your next hero phase. Incorporeal Retainer. Roll a die each time the bearer suffers a wound or mortal wound on a 6+ it's shrugged. Anklet of Epiphany, add 1 to casting rolls for the bearer while they're within 1 inch of a terrain feature. The Decanter of Egos, once per battle. At the start of your movement phase, the bearer can use this artifact. If they do so until the end of that movement phase, add 3 inches to their move. Friendly Darkling Coven units that are wholly within 12, so you can make people faster. And then Heart of Woe, oh, it's a classic, the Heart of Woe. If the bearer is slain, they are removed from play. Each enemy model within 3 takes D3 wounds. Each enemy unit within 3 takes D3 mortal wounds. Shade Sliver, pick one of the bearer's melee weapons. If that weapon inflicts any wounds in the combat phase, add 1 to its damage characteristic for the rest of the battle, starting from the next combat phase in which it's used, and it's cumulative. Whoa, so every round it gives wounds, so like damage 1, damage 2, damage 3, like every combat phase. So like turn 1, if you're in combat in the first half, you go to damage 2 for the second half of turn 1, 3, like you just have to keep causing a wound, and your damage just like, you could be damage 12. If you were in combat at the beginning of the game, and did at least 1 wound every round, you'd be damage 12 by the end of the game. No, 5 rounds, damage 10. Here's my damage 10 sword. Madness. Dispossessed. I'm glad the dwarves are getting, some of the old dwarf models from Warhammer are so nice. I'm glad they're getting their own little like set of traits. So they had Stubborn to the End. If you roll an unmodified battle shock test of 1, 2, or 3, just auto pass it, regardless of your casualties. And then Grudge Bound, after setup's complete, before the battle begins, choose a roll from the right. So you can be Stuck Up, reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by Dispossess the target a hero. Speed Merchants, make it speed. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by Dispossess units that target a move characteristic model of 10 or more. Monstrous Cheaters, reroll hit rolls of 1 if attacking a monster. Cowardly Horde, reroll hit rolls of 1, the target enemy that has at least 20 models when it was first set up. So that's cool, so it doesn't have to still have 20, it just means goblins or any big unit you reroll 1s against forever. Shoddy Craftsmanship, reroll hit rolls of 1 against models with a save of 2, 3, or 4. And their armor's badly made. And then Sneaky Ambushers, reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by friendly dispossessed units that target a unit that was in cover or that started as a reserve unit, so anybody that came down into the sky. And then your command traits, Resolute, your Stubborn's passed on a 1 to 4 automatically. Resilient, add 1 to your wounds. Battle Fury, roll a die after they've fought in combat. On a 6, they pile and fight immediately and do it again. Siege Master, do not apply the cover modifiers to save rolls for attacks made by friendly dispossessed units within 12 of the general. Unforgiving, add 1 to hit and wound rolls for attacks made by this general that target the unit that's inflicted any wounds on this general, so he gets mad. And then Grudge Bearer, once per battle in your hero phase, if this general is on the battlefield, you can pick a new grudge to replace the original one from up here. That's pretty cool. And then Artifacts, the Heavy Metal Ingot, you can reroll save rolls for attacks that target the bearer if the bearer has not made a move. Ancestral Pickaxe, once per battle at the start of your movement phase, you can remove the bearer and up to 1 friendly unit from within 6, not wholly within, and set them up at the end of your next movement phase anywhere in the battlefield. So he digs a hole and disappears. He just like technodromes out like Rocksteady and Bebop. Teardrop of Grugni, once per battle at the start of your shooting phase, pick 1 enemy unit within 6 of the bearer. They take D3 mortal wounds. In addition, if the target is a hero or monster, it halves its move characteristic into the next movement phase. The Grudge Rune, after setup's complete, but before the battle begins, pick 1 enemy hero. You can reroll hit and wound rolls for attacks made by the bearer that target them. The pile driver gauntlets. That sounds like a wrestling move. At the start of the combat phase, you can declare the bearer to strike the ground instead of attacking. If you do so until the end of the combat phase, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by enemy models within 6 of the bearer. And then resounding, well, that's as many times as you want. Yeah, so you give that to like a wizard or a runesmith. Oof, just have them pound the ground all the time. Resounding Gromril Horn. Once per battle at the start of your next hero phase, the bearer can use this artifact. If they do so, add 2 to the bravery characteristic of friendly dispossessed units in your next hero phase, until your next hero phase. Free Peoples. You get Defiant Avengers, reroll battle shock tests. Free Guild Great Companies. You can organize friendly Free Guild units into Free Guild Great Companies before setup begins. You must tell your opponent which of your units are in each free company. When you form a Free Guild Great Company, before the battle, it must consist of 1 Free Guild Guard unit with at least 20 models, and 2 other Free Guild units of any type, including Free Guild Guard that have at least 10 models each. So, for example, a Great Company might have one unit of 30 Free Guild Guard, a unit of 15 Free Guild Crossbows, and a unit of 10 Great Swords. So you have to have a 20-person Free Guild unit, and then you can have up to 2 other units be part of it. At the end of each enemy charge phase, units in a Free Guild Great Company can lend support to other units if all of the following apply. The unit lending supports more than 3 from enemy. The unit being supported is within 3 inches of 1 or more enemy units. The 2 units are wholly within 12 inches of each other. A unit lending support to another unit can either attack with a missile weapon it's armed with, as if it was the shooting phase, or attempt to charge if it was the charge phase. So if you can engage all the supporting units, they don't get to do anything. But if you can't engage them within 3, then they can shoot or charge. Your command traits: Inspiring. Don't take battle shock tests for Free People's units within 12 of the general, wholly within 12. Battle tested veteran. At the start of your hero phase, if your general is on the battlefield, roll a die. On a 5+, you receive a command point. Shrewd Commander. Roll on the triumph table at the start of the battle. This is in addition to the roll for winning a major victory in the last game. Indomitable. Add +1 to save rolls for attacks that target friendly Free People units that have not made a charge move this turn while they're wholly within 12 inches of the general. And then Righteous Fury, add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by this general if they target a chaos unit. And Grim Resolve, get +1 wound. You can have the Armor of Meteoric Iron for +1 save. Blade of the Realms, if the unmodified wound roll for this attack is 6, they take a mortal wound in addition to normal damage. Luckstone, once per turn, you can reroll 1 hit roll or wound roll for an attack made by the bearer, or reroll 1 save roll. So you get a reroll basically per turn. The Broken Shackle, they can fly when they make a retreat move. In addition, the bearer can retreat and still charge later in the turn. The Writ of Dominion, once per battle at the start of your hero phase, the bearer can use this artifact. If they do so, the bearer cannot move until your next hero phase. However, until your next hero phase, add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by friendly Free People units that are wholly within 12 of the bearer. And the Flag of Conquerors, add 1 to the bravery characteristic of friendly Free People's units that are wholly within 12 inches of the bearer. In addition, add 1 to charge rolls for friendly Free People units that are wholly within 12 of the bearer. And we're on to Seraphon. Okay, so this is one of the 2 big ones, Seraphon and Ironjaws. This basically includes all of the stuff from the rulebook. So there's a lot here. Masters of Order. Slann wizards can attempt to unbind spells as if they that are cast anywhere in the battlefield and attempt to dispel endless spells anywhere in the battlefield. So no range for their dispels. Contemplation of the Ancient Ones. At the end of your hero phase, you can pick 1 friendly Slann wizard and replace the spell they know from the Seraphon spell lore table with a new spell from that table. Choose or roll on the new spell, and then generate a different one than they had before. So you can just switch spells into the hero phase, which is cool. Lords of Space and Time. In your hero phase, you can pick 1 friendly Seraphon unit anywhere in the battlefield to be transported through space and time. If you do so, remove them from the battlefield and then set them up on the battlefield anywhere that's more than 9 inches from the enemy unit. This counts as their move in the following movement phase. So, every turn, you can just pick somebody up and move them around the table. Yeah, in your hero phase, just do it. Just a friendly Seraphon unit just gets moved around. They just go wherever they want. It's crazy. Celestial Conjuration, like you can just pull guys out to charge again. It's crazy. Celestial Conjuration, you can summon units of Seraphon to the battlefield if you collect enough Celestial Conjuration points in your hero phase before attempting to cast a spell with a Slann General. You can say that it will carry out a Celestial Conjuration instead. If you do so, you receive 3 Celestial Conjuration points instead of being able to attempt to cast that spell. In addition, at the end of your hero phase, you receive 1 Celestial Conjuration point if your general is a Slann, and D3 if there are 1 or more friendly Saurus Astrolith bearers on the battlefield. So potentially you'll have 3 plus 1 for a slan plus D3 per round. If you have 6 or more Celestial Conjuration points at the end of your movement phase, you can summon 1 or more units from the list on the right onto the battlefield and add them to your army. Each unit you summon costs a number of Celestial Conjuration points as shown on the list, and you can only summon a unit if you have enough points to do so. Summon units must be set up wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Slan or a friendly Saurus Astrolith bearer, and more than 9 from enemy units. Subtract 1 from the cost of units summoned from the number of Celestial Conjuration points you have immediately after the summon unit set up. So yeah, so you basically, you don't lose all your points like you used to do with the Bloodbound. Instead, you just deduct the cost, basically. And it's, in addition to your hero phase, before he casts a spell, so every time the Slan forfeits a spell, he makes 3 Conjuration points. And a Slan can cast, I think, 2 or 3 times per turn. I have to look that up, actually. I'm not 100% sure how many times they cast per turn, but I'm gonna look up the app right now. But that means that just for sacrificing their spells, they can automatically, if it is 2, they can automatically get at least 1 thing. And the cost 6 things are 10 skinks, a Razordon, a Salamander, or 3 skink handlers. So you're basically making a new unit every turn if you sacrifice your spells to do so. Slan. So yeah, so a Slan Starmaster can cast 3 different spells. There you go. So you can make 9 points, up to 12 if you've got an Astrolith bearer, and then that bonus 1 is for if your general's a Slan. So you actually, sorry, yeah, you make 10 per turn just for having a Slan not cast any spells and be your general, plus D3. So now you're looking at the 12-point ones, which is most of them. So like every turn, instead of casting spells, you could bring on 5 Chameleon Skanks, 3 Ripperdactyls, 1 Saurus Eternity Warden, 5 Saurus Guard, 5 Saurus Knights, 1 Saurus Ordblood, 1 Saurus Scarvet on a cold one, 1 Saurus Sunblood, 10 Saurus Warriors, 1 Skank Priest, 1 Skank Star Priest, or 3 Pterodon Riders. Or 2 of any, or like 20 Skanks if you want. And that's madness. And now they have to come in near the Slan or the Astrolith bearer, but like, that's just throwing wounds onto the table. And they don't even count towards the tie breaks for pitch battle tournaments. And so every other turn, you could bring in the 24-point ones, or the 18-point ones. And the 18-point ones are Troglodons, Starseers, 20 Saurus Warriors, a Saurus Astrolith bearer, 3 Croxigors, an Engine of the Gods, a Stegodon, or a Saurus Scarvet on a Carnosaur, a Saurus Old Blood on a Carnosaur, or a Bastillodon. So think about that. Saurus Old Blood on a Carnosaur, every other round just shows up on the table for that 12 points. And that's just if you have an Astrolith bearer and you have a Slan. That's 3 per game. He's just making 3 per game at the end of the movement phase. They just show up. And I can't remember how many points they are, but that's a lot. That is making, where are they? Seraphon. Saurus Old Blood on a Carnosaur. They're 240 points. So that's making 720 points worth of models over the course of the game. And you can have multiple Slans, so you can do it every turn, I guess. Well, let's talk about they've added point summoning basically just to the Seraphon. Command traits: Arcane Might. Reroll 1 for you can reroll 1 casting, unbinding, or dispelling roll for this general each hero phase. Actually, hang on. Before I get into these, let me just re-look at this. It's not once per hero phase. I thought in my head maybe it's only once per hero phase. You can receive 3 conjuration points. Nope. It's in your hero phase before attempting to cast a spell with a Slan General. Oh, so only the General can make the points then. Okay, so the not Slan General can't make the points. Okay, phew. So the most you can make that every turn is going to be 12. 13, actually, if you get a good roll on the whatchamacallit, the Astrolith bearer. So Arcane Might. You can reroll 1 casting, unbinding, or dispelling roll for the General each hero phase. Vast Intellect. This General can use the Curse of Fates and summon Starlight spells from the Skank Starseer and Skank Star Priest War Scrolls. Great Rememberer. If this General's on the battlefield, you can use the Lords of Space and Time twice each hero phase rather than only once. Oh my god. So you can summon those Old Bloods and then start your next turn if you double round and just like teleport them anywhere on the table if you want. And then you've got Source Command traits. Discipline Fury. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by melee weapons. Thickly Scaled Hide. Reroll save rolls of 1. And Mighty War Leader at the start of your hero phase. If your General's on the battlefield on a 5+, you get an extra command point. Skink command traits. If it's Skink Priest, they can use the Celestial Rites ability from their War Scroll twice in each hero phase rather than once. If they're not a Skink Priest, they use the Celestial Rites ability. Nimble, add 1 to the general's move characteristic. In addition, add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target them as long as they do not have a mount. And then Cunning, at the start of your combat phase, you can pick 1 enemy hero within 3 inches of the general and roll a die. On a 4+, they take a mortal wound. And then you have Artifacts of Powers and your own spell lore. So the Artifacts of Power, the Zoetic Dial, roll a die after setup is complete but before the battle begins. In the battle round, corresponding to the number you roll, you can reroll save rolls for attacks that target the bearer. If you roll a 6, you can decide to use this ability at the start of any one battle round rather than having to use it in the 6th battle round. So you basically get to because there might not be a 6th battle round, you just get to choose when you do it instead. It's kind of neat. Incandescent Rectrices, roll a dice for the first time a wound is allocated to the bearer. That would slay them. On a 1 to 2 they're slain. On a 3+, heal D6 wounds. Oh man, that's good for your slaying. Blade of Realities, pick 1 of their melee weapons, improve its rend by 1. Blade of the Dracothian. Once per battle, you can automatically unban a spell by an enemy wizard within 15 of the bearer. Coronal Shield. At the start of the combat phase, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of the bearer. On a 4+, -1 to hit rolls for attacks in that combat phase. Prism of Amintok. Once per battle, at the start of your movement phase, pick 1 enemy unit within 12 of the bearer and roll a dice. On a 1, that unit suffers a mortal wound. On a 2 to 5, they take D3. On a 6, they take D6. And then your spell lore. Now, these are going to have to be pretty great to trade off summoning, because summoning with that slan is bonkers. Celestial Apotheosis. You can choose any. Actually, all the wizards can use these. Never mind, not just this land. Celestial Apotheosis has a casting value of 5. If successfully cast, pick 1 friendly unit wholly within 18 of the caster, invisible to them. Heal a wound allocated to that unit. In addition, until your next hero phase, subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of enemy units while they're within 3 inches of that unit. Claws of Glory. Claws of Glory has a casting value of 6. If cast, pick a friendly unit wholly within 18 of the caster, invisible. Reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by that unit until your next hero phase. You can do that with CPs now, so I'm not super into that. Walk Between Realms. Cast on a 6. Pick a friendly unit wholly within 18, invisible. They can fly. Meteoric Convocation. Has a casting value of 7. If cast, pick an enemy unit within a 24 invisible. Roll 8 dice. On a 5+, take a mortal wound. Mystical Unforging. Has a casting value of 8. Pick 1 enemy hero with an artifact of power within 12 and visible. That hero suffers D3 mortal wounds, and you must roll a die. On a 5+, their artifact breaks. Stellar Tempest. Cast on an 8. If cast, pick 1 enemy unit within 24 invisible. Roll 1 die for each model. On a 5+, to take a mortal wound. Stellar Tempest is pretty crazy. And you get 2 War Scroll battalions. You're going to get the Fangs of Sotek, which is a Slan Star Master, Zytoka, an Old Blood and a Carnosaur, Qkar, a Sunclaw Storehouse Battalion, so you have to take that as well. 0 to 4 War Scroll battalions chosen from any combination. So Sunclaw Star Host, Fireland Star Host, Eternal Star Host, and Thunderquake Star Host, and any number of Seraphon units. They're first to battle. In the first battle round, add 3 inches to the move characteristic from this battalion, excluding Zytoka, so not the Slan. And then first Old Blood, if Qkar is on the battlefield, at the start of the battle round, you receive 1 extra command point. If Qkar is on the battlefield at the start of the first battle round and this battalion contains the maximum number of battalions, you get D3 instead of 1. That's pretty cool. And Dracothian's Tail. It's 1 Slan Star Master, which is Kotek, a Fireland Star Host Battalion, 0 to 4 War Scroll battalions chosen from any combination of the following: Sunclaw Star Host, Fireland Star Host, Eternal Star Host, Shadowstrike Star Host, and any number of additional Seraphon units. Their abilities are appear at Kutuk's command. Instead of setting up a unit for this battalion in the battlefield, you can place it to one side in reserve. You can set up 1 reserve unit waiting to appear for each unit from the same battalion already on the battlefield. Kutuk must be set up on the battlefield. In your hero phase, you can set up 1 or more of the reserve units, more than 9 from any enemy units and within 18 of Kotek. However, each reserve unit set up in the same turn must be from a different unit chosen from a different war scroll. You cannot command the same unit to appear more than once. In the same turn, reserve units that are set up in this way cannot move in the following movement phase. Any reserve units waiting to appear at Kutuk's command which are not set up before the 4th turn are slain. And then Ancient Knowledge, if he's on the battlefield at the start of your hero phase, on a 4+, get an extra command point. And if he's on the battlefield at the start of your hero phase, and this battalion contains the maximum number of battalions, it's on a 2+ instead of a 4+. It's pretty neat. And then Wanderers. Oh my goodness, so much new things. So the Wanderers get a bunch of stuff here. They get Defiant Hunters. You can reroll Battle Shock tests for the Wanderers units. Realm Wanderers. At the start of your movement phase, one friendly Wanderers unit wholly within 6 of the edge of the battlefield can leave and travel along a hidden path. If they do so, remove that from the battlefield. They are set up anywhere on the battlefield, wholly within 6 of the edge and 9 from enemy, and melt away. Friendly Wanderer units can retreat and still shoot later in the same turn, which is pretty awesome for their cavalry and even their infantry. Command trait, Stalker of the Hidden Path. If a friendly Wanderers unit wholly within 12 of the general leaves the battlefield using the Wanderers trait instead of making a normal move, they can set up on the battlefield wholly within 9 of any edge of the battlefield, not just the one it left by, and more than 9 of any enemy units. And then Mistwalker. Enemy units can only attack the general if it's the close enemy model. Whew, that's good. Masterful Hunter, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks with missile weapons by this general. If this general does not have a missile weapon, they receive a Hunting Hawk instead and can use the Hunting Hawk's beak missile weapon from the Nomad Prince War Scroll. Eagle-Eyed, add 10 to the range characteristic of missile weapons used by the general. If this general does not have a missile weapon, they get a Hunting Hawk. Lord of Blades, reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by melee weapons by this general. And then Singer of Spells, add 1 to casting, unbinding, and dispelling rolls for this general. And if they're not a wizard, they gain the wizard keyword and can attempt to cast and unbind 1 spell and dispel 1 spell in your hero phase. And then Artifacts of Power, the Falcon of Holthaven. Roll a dice each time the enemy unit ends a normal move within 12 inches of the bear on a 4+ to take a mortal wound. Starcaster Longbow, in your shooting phase, you can pick 1 enemy unit within 20 inches of the bear and roll a dice on a 2 to 5 to take a mortal wound, on a 6+ to take D3. Splinterbirch Blade, pick 1 of the bear's melee weapons and improve its run by 1. Wending Wand, once per battle, a unit that leaves the battlefield using Realm Wanderers can set up wholly within 18 of the bear and wholly within 6 inches of the edge of a battlefield. Not just the one it left by, and more than 9 inches of the enemy models. So you can basically draw someone who left to outflank near to you. The Viridescent Shawl, add 1 to casting rolls for friendly Wanderer wizards within 9 inches of the bear. In addition, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by missile weapons that target the bear. And Forget Me Not, once per battle at the start of the combat phase, pick 1 enemy hero within 3 inches of the bear. They cannot fight or use abilities in that combat phase. Sorry, Nagash, no way to even stop that madness. Slaves to Darkness. Oh my goodness. Aura of Chaos Power for Khorne. Reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by Khorne Slaves to Darkness units if they're within 8 of a friendly hero. Khorne Slaves to Darkness hero. And this is all tied to the same keyword. Slaanesh reroll run rolls and charge rolls for friendly Slaanesh Slaves to Darkness units wholly within 6 inches of the hero. Nurgle reroll wound rolls of 1, same 7 inches. It's all the gods numbers. I get it now. Tzeentch. Reroll save rolls of 1 if they're wholly within 9 inches of the hero. And then No Mark, add 1 to the Bravery characteristic for friendly Slave to Dark units that don't have the Nurgle, Slaanesh, or Tzeentch keyword and are wholly within 12 inches of a friendly hero that doesn't have a keyword. Eye of the Gods, if a friendly Slave to Darkness hero, excluding Demon Princes, makes an attack with a melee weapon that slays 1 or more heroes or monsters, make a roll on the Eye of the Gods table below after it's been resolved. If that friendly hero receives a reward that already has, roll a die. On a 1 to 3, the hero receives Spondum. On a 4 to 6, they get Dark Apotheosis instead, so if you get one you already have. 2d6 for Eye of the Gods. Spondum, add a Chaos Spawn to your army, and slay the hero. 3 to 4, Unholy Resilience, +1 wound. 5, Iron Skid, +1 to save. 6 to 8, the eye opens. Once per battle, you can either reroll 1 hit roll for an attack made by the hero, reroll 1 save roll for attacking that targets the hero. Murderous Mutation, add 1 to hit rolls for their weapons. Slaughterer's Strength, add 1 to wound rolls for their melee weapons. And Dark Apotheosis, add a Demon Prince to your army and slay the hero. That's pretty cool. Command traits, Eternal Vendetta, burning in the chest of his general is an undying hatred of the followers of Sigmar. You can reroll wound rolls for attacks made by melee weapons in this general that target an order unit. Flames of Spite, if the unmodified wound roll for an attack made by this general is 6, the target suffers a mortal wound. In addition to normal damage, Master of Deception, subtract 1 from hit rolls that attack the general with melee weapons. Hatred Incarnate, you can reroll wound rolls of 1 for attacks made by the general. Lord of Terror, subtract 1 from the Bravery characteristic of the enemy units if they're within 6 inches of the general. And Exalted Champion, add 1 to the Bravery characteristic of friendly Slaves to Darkness units while they're within 12 inches of the general, wholly within. And then your artifacts, the Hellfire Sword. Once per battle in your shooting phase, pick an enemy unit within 8 inches of the bear. 8 inches of the bear, and they take D3 mortal wounds. Idolatrous Placard. Placard. Roll a die each time a mortal wound is allocated to the bearer on a 5+ is negated. Helm of the Oppressor. Subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of the enemy while they're within 6 inches of the bearer. Banner of the Demagogue. Add 1 of the bravery characteristic of friendly Slaves to Darkness units that are wholly within 12 inches. And then Mark of the All Favored. The bearer receives the benefits of all 5 of the Aura of Chaos battle traits, including the No Mark trait, but can't be given a Mark of Chaos. And the Desecrator Gauntlets. Subtract 2 from casting rolls for enemy wizards that are within 3 inches of the bearer. In addition, add 1 to wound rolls for attacks that target a wizard or priest. And then finally, Iron Jaws, the last one. A whole new list of abilities for Iron Jaws and 2 new War Scroll battalions. So battle traits, Smashing and Bashing. In the combat phase, after a friendly Iron Jaws unit has made all of its attacks, if the attacks made by that unit resulted in the enemy being destroyed, one friendly Iron Jaws unit that has not yet fought in the combat phase can fight instead of doing so later in the phase. Eager for Battle, and 1 to charge rolls for all your units. And then command abilities, Mighty Destroyers. Use this command ability in your hero phase. If you do so, pick 1 friendly Iron Jaws unit wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Iron Jaws hero, or wholly within 18 of the general. The unit can make a normal move if it's more than 12 from the enemy, pile an attack if it's within 3, or charge if it's in any other circumstance. You cannot pick the same unit to benefit from that ability more than once per hero phase. So no more dice roll, it's just a CP to buy. Spell Lores for your wizards. Brain Buster. Cast on 5. 1 enemy within 15 invisible. Roll 2d6. If it's greater than bravery, they take d3. If not, they take 1 mortal wound. Mighty Headbutt. Cast on a 5. Pick an enemy hero within 16. The hero must take a mortal wound. If that hero is a wizard, they take d3 instead of 1. And it to be visible. The Blazing Eyes. The Blazing Eyes is cast on a 6. If cast, pick 1 point in the battlefield within 46 of the caster, invisible to them. Then draw an imaginary line between that point and the close part of the base. Roll a die for each enemy unit passing the line on a 5+, take a mortal wound. It's each enemy model, not unit. That's an important distinction. The Great Big Green Hand of Gork. It's cast on a 7. Pick a friendly unit, Iron Jaws unit, wholly within 24 of the caster, and visible, and more than 3 from the enemy. Remove them from the battlefield and set them up anywhere within 9. Still Hand of Gork. Bash 'em Lads on an 8. If you're successfully casting until your next hero phase, you can reroll wound rolls for attacks made by friendly Iron Jaws if they're wholly within 12 of the caster. And Power of Dawa has a casting value of 8. If cast, roll 1 die for each friendly Iron Jaws unit with 2 or more models that's wholly within 18. For each 3+, you can pick a different enemy unit within 24 of the caster. That unit suffers d3 mortal wounds for each 6 and d6 mortal wounds. D3 mortal wounds, and for each 6, they take d6 mortal wounds instead. So basically, you suck up power for all the Iron Jaws units nearby, and then roll a die for each one that you basically absorb, and it's d3 or d6 mortal wounds. Your command traits, Hulking Muscle-Bound Brute. After the general makes a charge move, you can pick an enemy unit within 1 inch of the general and roll a die on a 2+, take d3 mortal wounds. Live to Fight, you can reroll wound rolls for attacks made by this general if they charge in the same turn. Roll a Brutish Cunning. Roll a dice at the start of your opponent's charge phase on a 5+. 1 friendly Iron Jaws unit wholly within 12 of the general can attempt the charge. The charge takes place before any enemy charges. Bestial Charisma. If this general is chosen as the model from which the Inspiring Presence command ability is measured, you can pick d3 units instead of 1. Prophet of the Wa. If this general has the Wa or Mighty Wa command ability, you can reroll the dice to see if the relevant units can make an extra attack. If the general does not have one of these abilities, they can use the Wa command ability from the Orc Mega Boss War Scroll, and then Ironclad, reroll save rolls of 1 for attacks that target the general. Artifacts, the Armor of Gork. If the unmodified save roll for the attack made with a melee weapon that targets the bearer is a 6, the attacking unit suffers 1 mortal wound after all its attacks are resolved. Destroyer, improve the damage characteristic of 1 of your weapons by 1. Daubing of Mork, roll a dice each time a wound or mortal wound is allocated to the bearer. On a 6+, it's negated. The Golden Tooth, do not take Battleshock tests for Iron Jaws units wholly within 12 of the bearer. Metal Ripper's Claw, pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, change its rend to -3 before applying any other modifiers to that weapon's rend. And then the Boss Skewer, add 1 of the bravery characteristic of friendly Iron Jaws units that are wholly within 18 of the bearer, and subtract 1 from bravery characteristics of enemy units while they're within 12 of the bearer. And then your 2 new battalions, the Iron Suns. It's a Mega Boss on a Maw Crusher, a Iron Fist Battalion, and then 0 to 4 of the following: Brute Fist, Gore Fist, Ard Fist, Iron Fist, and any other Iron Jaws units. You get Dakbad's Cunning. Roll a dice after each setup is complete. Before the battle begins, on a 2+, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by the unit until in the first battle round. For the purpose of Dakbad's bashing, for the purpose of his strength from Victory's ability, Dakbad Grot Kicker counts as having slain D3 enemy heroes when the battle starts, with the weapon of your choice from those listed on his war scroll. And then the Blood Tooths Mega Boss on Maw Crusher, Iron Fist Battalion of at least 5 units, and 0 to 4 of the following: Brood Fist, Gore Fist, Weird Fist, or Iron Fist, and any number of other Iron Jaws units. Hunt and Crush, add 1 to run and charge rolls for units in the battalion. And Get to Realm Gate. After territories have been chosen, you can set up 1 Bill for Realm Gate terrain feature in your opponent's territory. Add 2 to the bravery characteristic of units from this battalion while there are any Bill for Realm Gate terrain features on the battlefield. In addition, if there's any Bill for Realm Gate terrain features on the battlefield, each unit from this battalion counts as 2 units for the purposes of Zarbag Realm Rippa's Mighty Wa ability. And that's it. And that's your meeting engagement roster, which you can see in our playthrough of meeting engagements. So there we go. We've got a new General's Handbook. And what a General's Handbook. Tons of new guidelines for playing the game. Lots of new meat for tournaments. And then some great new rules for especially the Seraphon and Iron Jaws. But with the double-edged sword, then I think that means they're probably waiting a bit more for their new books. And some other cool new stuff for, of course, the Wanderers, the Darkling Covens, the Free Guild, the Dispossessed, and a variety of other factions. So we'll see you next time for more GMG reviews. I'm super excited about this Age of Sigmar. Tell me in the comments below what you think about this new General's Handbook. Until next time, I'm Ash. Have a great night. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to support the channel, of course, like and subscribe and hit the little bell below so you get notifications when I post future content. I do post stuff 7 days a week. If you want to support the channel further, you can, of course, buy a t-shirt through Spreadshirts, buy a measuring gauge or objective markers from Desperate Designs, or, of course, most importantly, there is Patreon. Patreon is what makes all this possible, keeps the lights on, pays for the studio costs, pays for the equipment, model costs, and everything else, and most importantly, puts food in my kids' bellies and a roof over their heads. Big thanks to everyone, past, future, who supported me. I do this stuff because of you guys, and of course, I will continue doing it as long as I can.